Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
To buy the tapes, you can buy them out in the front. Before we begin, please join me to moments of silence with a spreading prayer. God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Well, we have three speakers tonight, and each one is going to share their spirit, strength, and hope with you. Number one, I have Richard. Number two, I have Shaw. And number three, I have Tom. And so I'm going to have them to speak for you. So the first one would be Richard.
All right. Okay. This isn't coming out of my time. Okay, now we're good. I'm Richard. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Richard.
Let's see. I am so happy to be here. This is my fourth living sober, and I actually got sober here. So it's awesome to be here. I am a lot less sweaty than I was the first one. So let's see. My sobriety date is July 1st, 2009. Okay, so yeah, God willing, and if you guys laugh at my jokes for the next 20 minutes, I should be celebrating 3 years at midnight. Okay. So let's see. We'll start with the beginning. Born and raised in Fresno, California. Okay. Yeah, everybody's like, okay, we know why she drank. Skip to the sobriety. I actually live there right now. Well, more will be revealed on that. So alcoholism runs up and down my family. My dad was an addict and an alcoholic. My folks divorced when I was 2. I'm gonna toss you right in it. It's gonna get real heavy, then it's gonna lighten up a bit, okay? Yeah, my folks divorced when I was 2 because of my dad's using, and my mom ended up raising me and my sister by herself, which was not the plan. My dad was successful when they got married, and she certainly didn't see that coming. So one of the gifts of the program is really that I got my history back, because I felt like a huge victim because of these circumstances. Because we weren't supposed to be raised poor, but that's sort of what happened. And, you know, my mom really spun gold from the shitty hand she was dealt, and I'm really grateful for that and no longer feeling like a victim. My dad he would get better, and then he'd be in a halfway house, and then he'd be living with his parents, and then we kept in some contact. I think the last time I saw him, it was at my confirmation. Catholicism is a part of my story, and still is, something I'm very grateful for. And he was planning to go to law school, kind of later in life, but he didn't get that chance because when I was about 17, my grandmother found him in his apartment dead. He had overdosed. So that's sort of where I come from. Yeah, and you know, I share that because this disease really is fatal, and because in the Meditation for Women's book that my sponsor gave me, the reading for today, okay, we keep it real. It said, the whole reading was about being as sick as your secrets and, you know, being honest, and that's my story. And, you know, if that can help somebody, you know, it's less for me to share that. I have come to accept that. It could do more to help somebody than it will do me keeping that a secret from people. So I hope that helps. And the reason I share that is because I'm supposed to end up exactly like my dad. That's the way this disease works. And thanks to this program, I'm not. And we're going to tie the whole law school thing in a bow at the end. It's going to be very cute. So anyway, let's get to my drinking, because that can be the funniest part. No. Let's see. Nobody laughed at that. Come on, throw me a bone. Jesus. So, you know, I thought it was cute to share about how I started drinking and everything, but sort of let's talk about how it ended, because that'll give you a better idea why I'm here. My life revolved around drinking. I had some problems. I never got drunk fast enough. So I had to keep drinking until it all hit me like a ton of bricks. I never had enough carbs. That's why I got so drunk. And, you know, if I'd go out 20 times in one night, I didn't end up in some awful situation, then I would use that one time to justify all the other times where the same thing would happen. I always had excuses, you know. I was young. That's how young people drink. No, girl. I was the only one drinking the way I was drinking just about all the time. And, you know, people talk about like the fun with problems, and then just the problems. I was having problems in high school. Like, this girl did not catch a break. And, yeah, I was a big mess. And, yeah, a lot of people were along for the ride. And, you know, that's something I'm working on in the program. And, you know, something that I have to accept and make living amends to these people. So where was I? Oh yeah, I was drunk. Okay, so, you know, things got good for me really well. And I remember in my home group, my first home group in Marin County in Sausalito, this lady came up to me and she's like, "Oh, you must have been a real high-bottom drunk." And I was like, "Girl, I wet the bed like 5 days a week. Like, there was nothing high-bottom about it, okay?" But yeah, I always, you know, I never drank like other people. I was the one in high school, like, if other people were drunk, I would be skinny dipping with like the other, you know, hot messes that I associated with. Let me tell you, something I really liked about drinking was that it gave me a label other than the labels I really didn't like. Because I didn't like being the gay kid at the small Catholic school I went to in Fresno. I didn't like being the kid, you know, one of the only kids who didn't have a car because, you know, my folks had no money. But being the partier, that was something I could deal with. You know, it gave me that, like, and this is the 90s, you know, this is the 90s, like, this is that cute little edge, you know? And I really took that on, and it kind of ate me alive. You know, just to backtrack a little bit, I came from a really strict family, and my mom eventually remarried, and my stepdad was this huge disciplinarian, and I was always the bad kid because I didn't accept some other guy coming in, and that didn't set well with my family. But rather than being a huge victim about that, I'm really grateful for how stubborn it made me. Because, you know, when you're a poor kid from Fresno, you're not supposed to be doing some of the cool things I'm doing right now that I'll get into in just a bit. So, is it creepy how close I am to the mic? Because okay, I don't know if it's sounding like phone sex operator. So anyway, but you know, what are you wearing? You know. Anyway, so. I kind of like it, though. It's deepening my voice. This is the butchest I've sounded my whole life, okay? I love it. No, I remember it was like in high school. I've kind of always been this gay. I remember I was in computers in high school, and my best friend said something to me, and I answered him, I was like, I don't know. And it was the first time I had talked to that, and I swear to God, like, the clouds just opened, and Jesus, like, put down his hand, and he was like, yes, my son, that is how you will talk the rest of your life, you know? And I never looked back. So here we are. Anyway, back to me being drunk. So, yeah, okay. So anyway, my life was pretty pathetic before I came in here. You know, I mentioned the stubbornness because I fought so hard to sort of have this like indomitable spirit and stand up to, you know, what was going on at home, just to turn my life over to another master. And, you know, that's talked about in the big book, and that really took me out. So, you know, at the end of it, I was, here, we'll step back a little bit. At the end of it, I had a job, I had a partner, I had a place to live, but I was a terrible partner. My partner and I, at that time, had been together for 5 years, and those were very messy years. And I have totally got him his seat in Al-Anon. Redeemable at any time, no expiration. But, you know, I was a bad son, I was distant. You know, when you're already slurring by 6:30 in the evening, you know, you don't want to call mom. 10 minutes, all right, let's move along. So yeah, you know, I had my job and I had my vodka, and that was about it. You know, when I got sober, a lot of people were like, oh, you didn't have a problem? I'm like, yeah, you didn't see me. You didn't drink like I did. I cut you out a long time ago. You know, so anyway, I was limping along in life. Like, I was just kind of alive. I had a pulse and everything, but I was very alone. And my life had become a bottle and, you know, my little double bed that I would pass out on. And like I said, I was an awful partner. I wasn't participating in my family. I was a bad friend. And my job was really my last excuse. And I put that in jeopardy because, let me tell you a bit about Pride, because that's what let me in. And I love this fellowship because so many of us have, I love how our sobriety dates are all, you know, into June, beginning of July. Some of us held on a little longer than others. You know, so, okay, it's gonna make sense in a second, but okay, Michael Jackson died on the Thursday before Pride. That's gonna make sense. Okay, so we had a Michael Jackson dance party at my house, which was just a big pretext to drink a bunch of vodka and dance to, you know, We Are the World or whatever. And so I called in sick on Friday. So then Pride happened. And this event, Gay Christmas, that I had looked forward to all summer, I did nothing. Because I'm like, oh, I can start drinking at 8 in the morning, not PM, okay? And so I was ready to pass out by 10. I did nothing. You know, people had to put me back into taxi cabs, and, you know, it was not cute. I kept calling in sick the next week, and by Wednesday I knew the jig was up, and I was scared. And, you know, the last year and a half of my drinking was very much this way, and I was out of excuses and painted into a corner. So I stumbled to Bart, and I called my mom and I came clean. And I told her, you know how I say I just drink that way because I'm in Fresno and I'm on vacation? Well, you know, I kind of drink that way every other day. And I took a week off from work, and by the grace of God, living sober was that weekend. So I walked in with like 3 days and a whole bunch of sweat, bags under my eyes, because I didn't know how to sleep without passing out. I had that taste of alcohol still in my mouth. I haven't looked at my notes once, by the way. Okay, all right. I'm a little black swan, so I like to have notes, but okay. Anyway, so that began my sobriety. And, you know, it was a real leap of faith in the beginning. And I think if you're new, we all appreciate that because we've all been there. And I thank God so much that I'm sober, because like I said, I'm supposed to end up like my dad. Like, I'm supposed to be limping along in life until somebody finds me dead. much before his time. I'm not supposed to be going to law school. And, in a year I'll be taking the bar, which I'm doing totally in sobriety and is amazing. Things have just been so good. I have friends here, okay. There's a 5-minute and then, oh, no 5-minute? Oh, fuck, I thought there was a 5-minute. Talk fast, okay? I'll be talking like an auctioneer. Okay, so let's see, what's happened in sobriety? Well, a lot of amazing things have happened. I used to think that saying that, my worst day sober is better than my best day drunk was so hokey, but it's so true. At 1 year sober, that relationship that I mentioned ended because the cliche happened. I got sober, he didn't, and we had nothing in common anymore. And what that meant was he was still going to the bars and I was going to meetings. And, as codependent as my ass is, I had just enough self-esteem at 1 year of sobriety to know that wasn't okay. And rather than doing what we had done before, where we break up but stay having sex, I was gonna say something real vulgar, we stay having sex and then get back together, I moved out and I haven't looked back. And that's been a real challenge because I've never been single in sobriety or drunk. So it's varying degrees of fun there. I'm so grateful for this program. I'm so grateful I'm getting to do the things my dad never had a chance to do. I'm so grateful that I am a good son, that if God changes the strike he has against me meeting somebody, when I do meet somebody, I think I'll be a good partner. I'm a good friend. I have friends here, okay, that I couldn't imagine not having. And it's amazing. I count on them, and they count on me. And, I took an externship this summer in my hometown of Fresno. And for a moment, I was thinking I was ready to move back. But when I'm back and with these friends, I don't want to change these friendships. We're so lucky here to have the meetings that we do and the sobriety that we do have here. I have a friend whom I love that got sober somewhere else and really rags on the fellowship here, but it's keeping me sober. It has kept me sober, and there are some amazing men here. I have, an amazing sponsor. His name is Andrew, and his sponsor's name is Veronica, and it's just an amazing sponsorship pedigree. And I hope with the men I have sponsored, they hear Andrew through me, because I have been so blessed to have Andrew as my sponsor. I'm involved in service. It's a little difficult right now with me being between two places, but I was on GSO and secretarying a meeting. I go to multiple meetings a week. I try to talk to newcomers. I'm available. What else? Because I haven't gotten the wrap it up or, oh, are you about to give it? Oh, like you want it, girl? Okay. It has been such a journey. So I just, one thing I've noticed though is that God has really planned things out much better than I ever could have. And that's something I really need to remember when I start getting scared. Because I don't know what I'm doing in a year after I take the bar. I thought I was ready to move back to Fresno. I really think I want to stay here, but you know what? I don't need to decide that right now. Because as soon as I try to, I know my God has a sick sense of humor, and that's when shit's gonna start getting crazy. So I'm just taking a day at a time and seeing where the winds of fortune take me. Because I thought I had career-wise everything planned out before I went into law school, and I would have sold myself so short. I do work now that I am so passionate about, and it really makes a difference in the community. And that's exactly what I want to do with my law degree. And that is all from this program that, this idea of service. I'm serving the people of the state with the work that I do, and I'm going to continue to do. And, making a difference. But yeah, I just, before I came into this program, I was the type of person, total black swan, needed to have everything planned like years out or whatever. And when I came in, this queen, Zach, told me, just do the next right thing. And that idea was so revolutionary to me, because my mom is just a big, God bless her, a big Al-Anon relapse with legs, and so she's a big planner. And I'm that way, and I lead such a happier existence. And something else, I'm so glad I didn't forget this. I became grateful for this disease early on, and I think that's helped me stay sober. Because I really, 100% positive, sure as you see me here now, know that I will lead a richer existence as a result of being in this program than I would have had I never had an alcohol problem. And that's something to be grateful for. So many people just get one chance to live. I feel like we've all been given two. And that's something else to be grateful for. And life is good. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing now. And I think for a while it was easier. And let me just say, I love being from Fresno, okay? Like, I know people like to talk down, it's real cutesy. I love it, I love country music. I look good in a cowboy hat, like, it's my home, and it's cool to be home right now, because I had a big chip on my shoulder toward Fresno, so I need to wrap it up. But I don't know what I'm doing, but God has a plan. God has a really good plan, and God hasn't let me down yet. So I'm just going to keep trusting in Him, going to meetings, and keep doing what you guys tell me to do. And I'm so grateful to be here at Living Sober. Thank you so much for letting me speak. And the phone sex operated voice. Thank you.
Now the second speaker would be Shah.
My name is Shaw, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Shaw.
Thank you, Richard. I feel so presidential with this. It's too early. So I want to thank the committee for asking me to speak, because it's absolutely a privilege and an honor to speak at any meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I, too, am really grateful for alcoholism, because it is, whenever I go through the steps with someone else, I get to take a really good look at where I came from, and I think if it hadn't been for alcoholism, I would have missed out on so much. And if it hadn't been for AA, I would not have been able to appreciate any of it. I'm originally from Detroit. That's where I'm from. I'm a Midwesterner, and which means I'm trustworthy. But wait, so that's where I'm from, and my family moved from Michigan to Arizona, and from Arizona to San Diego, and then I moved up to LA. And I was telling someone earlier how he's from San Luis Obispo, David, and I was saying that, I was going to go to Cal Poly. And he's like, what happened? I went, well, I decided to move to Hollywood instead. And it's crazy. I was going to go to Cal Poly because it was the midway point between San Fran and Los Angeles. And my motivation was for the weekends. And and that Cal Poly has its own airstrip. And I thought, well, if you're going to go to college to get married, marry someone with a plane. And it was all set to go, and then at the last minute, I changed my mind, and I told my parents that I was not going to go to college. It was a very mature moment. I sat them down, and I said that I had decided not to go to college. And my dad's got a master's in mathematics, and my mother has her degree, and they were like, I go to college. And my dad goes, and what are you going to do with your high school diploma? And I go, I'm going to move to Hollywood and get a job. And my mother leaps, and my dad goes, wait, and what kind of job are you going to get with your high school diploma? And I was like, I flipped it like most alcoholics. I said, if half the things that you've told me about me are true, I'll be just fine. And Yeah. That's AA 101. So like, I moved to Hollywood and I lived with my friend Shelly Berger. And I did get a job, actually. My mother got one for me. And I quit that job for actually really good reasons. And then I sat at the bus stop bench on like Hollywood Boulevard and Western, and I kept, it was like 1984, 85, and everybody seemed to have a 450 SL except for me, and I was sitting there at the bus stop bench, and this car drove by, and I leaned out, and I went, how do you get one of those? And he hit his brakes and came back around and offered me a ride. And so started so much, because I was like young and clueless. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and found out that it was the first drink that got you drunk. And I was never aware that I was drinking or doing drugs for anything other than like to have a good time. And I eventually got like real careers, but I was always bought and paid for along the way. And because I needed the supplemental income. And my first justifiable bottom, I was 21, and I was homeless and really out of ideas. And I called my dad and went back to Detroit, which I hadn't been in Detroit in a long time. And I like being from Detroit. I don't want to live there. And so when my father said, you know, where do you want to go? And I told him Detroit. He was like, wow, it must be really bad. But, you know, I was trying to get away from cocaine. And so I went to Detroit to get away from cocaine. And I really believed, you know, I really believed that that if I just didn't do that, I'd be okay. But, you know, like most alcoholics that I know, I was there for about 2 weeks, and I had no idea that alcohol was my problem, none. And I met a guy there at Vince. You guys know Little Vince? Yeah, that's the first time our paths crossed. He's sober now. I have so many people in my life that are sober from years and cities that are in the past. There's no way Alcoholics Anonymous is an accident. You know, if you're here, don't doubt it. It's easier, it's cheaper, So I was in Detroit, and I was, you know, skidding along, and I stole $5,000 from this drug dealer who put a hit out on me, and I moved to New York, and which was a really wise decision. And you know, God has always been with me, and I've always prayed because I have too many experiences that don't make sense. If you are having any contemplation with a power greater than yourself, I encourage you to look at your own history. There's got to be something that did not make sense. Do you know what I mean? Like the car rolled, we got out of it and walked away. I left the house, it got raided, or, you know, I woke up.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
You know, like, that's it. I've ingested far too many chemicals that other people, they did not wake up. I wake up and go for more. There is a real benefit to being an alcoholic, because alcoholics have a unique ability to break down and process alcohol and drugs and keep functioning, whereas people that are not alcoholics, they just die. You know, an alcoholic will drink the keg and go, okay, where we going? And people that are not alcoholics don't drink the keg and say anything. You know? Yeah, that's it. The alcoholic will be like this. I got this. I got this. People that are not alcoholics are in the passenger seat throwing up outside the car. Me, I'm like, come on, girl, clean it up, let's go. Yeah. They're waiting for us. So I moved to New York City, and I had like 2 weeks, and my dream job happened. You know, early sobriety is early sobriety. People come into AA all day long, and they get like 30 days, a great job, great relationship. It's not news. It's just what happens when you stop ingesting alcohol and drugs. And yeah, I got there, and I prayed for this great job, and I got it. And I was a broker on Wall Street for this company, Shearson Lehman Brothers. They don't exist anymore, so you can say that. But the broker that I was working for had 5 years at the time, and Paulie would spoon feed me AA, because I was truly a club kid. I've always been a club kid, and you know, by day I'm giving suit and tie, and I was so much younger. You know, there was a lot of natural energy. So I would finish work and go home and barely disco nap, throw some water in the air, run under it, and change, and put on a pair of hot pants and some combat boots, and let's go. And that was it. And and then Monday, I'd be like, what? You know, he would ask me something about Friday, and I would go, Friday. No idea. And struggling through the workday, because I really didn't know that alcohol could be dangerous. I had no idea that it could be dangerous. So I would, I'd make sure that I always had something to drink. And I used to have a slogan that I wanted to die with a drink in one hand, a cigarette in the other, and something up my nose. And that's like a motto, you know, where does that come from? Who learns those things? So Paulie and I moved back to Los Angeles, and he had to let me go because I was stealing, which is something that I will tend to do. I used to, because I have these paranoid delusions that everyone is out to get me, and that if I don't protect me, you're gonna, you know, do me harm, and that's not the truth. Then I moved to Salt Lake City to pull it together, and yeah, and that's where I learned how to smoke meth off of a broken light bulb through a pin. So the glamour level got lower and lower and lower. And when I came back to Los Angeles to pull it together one more time, I ran into somebody who had gotten sober. And I had visited AA in Salt Lake City. I went to one meeting, got the big book, and read it, and could not find where do you stop drinking. You know, it's like, where's the page that says how do you stop drinking? And but I kept it for a long time. So when I needed to go to AA, it really wasn't that foreign. And when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I did nothing that was suggested, and then I drank. My drink started with non-alcoholic beer. This is totally my story. I don't want to debate it. But I figure if it says .001, eventually I'll get 1. I've yet to do .001 meth, .001 cocaine, .001. It's not where I'm at. But like, my sponsor would say, Greg Padilla was my first sponsor, and he would say to me, you know, queens are going to debate with you all day long over different stuff, like alcohol content and things. And he's like, girl, the day you start pouring out that Grey Poupon and sniffing it off the table, then we'll change your date. Until then, put it on your burger. So after I relapsed, because I had been going to AA, I watched myself drink. And I was really amazed, because I was drinking and other people were getting drunk. And I was drinking and other people were getting drunk. And I looked over at this guy, Luca. Luca and I were pacing each other. And I was playing Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, you know, where everybody's fabulous and everybody has things going on except for me. I give a look clothing, and that's it. There is no substance there. And that is different today. But at the time, I looked at Luca, and this girl at the end of the table, she was saying how she was feeling it, and it was her first drink. And Luca and I were, I don't know, we were far from our first one. And we laughed, and I said, amateurs, you know, and because I was a professional drunk. And so when I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, I did everything they told me to do. I stood up and I identified, and it was an out-of-body experience, and that is no lie. And then, yeah, I did everything. I even washed my sponsor's windows once. I don't argue with my sponsors. I don't debate it. I've yet to debate it because it's so far everything has worked. You know, everything has worked. When I get a suggestion that it doesn't turn out to my benefit, then I'll start questioning things. But I've worked the steps, so I do everything with my God, you know? Like the first step is where I say I'm powerless and blah, 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 blah. And then the second step, I create the God of my understanding. And then I turn my will and my life over, and I do the inventory, and I keep going. And because of this, I've done so many different things. I was in a meeting the other day, and they said, you know, what are your dreams? And what dreams of yours have come true? And I have several. I've gotten 3 degrees since I've been sober. I got a passport and have used it on multiple occasions. I was on the Eiffel Tower with my ex-partner, and we were standing there, and he was wondering what I was thinking, because I was like crying, and you know, I said, you don't get it. Like, from where I come from, this does not happen. I got sober I had a job in an apartment, but I was losing it all. I really had a backpack and like 20 teeth, short white hair, and some chucks. And you know, because I was willing to prove AA wrong, my life is completely different. And if you're contemplating the steps or anything like that, I'm like, why are you killing time? Leave. Somebody else wants the chair. I mean, that is the reality. I don't play around anymore. I have had too many friends and sponsees die because I was like, oh, honey, when you get around to it, no. Like, do the deal or don't. I'm not... I used to be really hard. Like, somebody died, so what? You know, keep going. Cheers, you know, they're dead. And I don't do that anymore. So I get attached to people, and I spend time with people, and you see progress and everything, and then when somebody throws up their hands, I can't just cut you out of my life anymore. And it is kind of like self-preservation. But I work with enough people, and I have enough friends in my life that are all doing the deal. I know it's a much better way. I have friends that I call to do 10 steps with. I can't call my sponsor all the time, you know? And that is like a blessing, because I didn't trust anybody. My first meeting, Samantha, this girl Sam, she got up to the podium and she was sharing and she was crying, and I thought, how can you do that in public? And I probably cried twice since I've been up here. It's a much freer life. Is that it? Oh, here. I have a lot of conviction in the steps because I know what they did for me, right? I was like 3 months behind in my rent and the job, all kinds of crazy madness, and my sponsor would say, just stay sober, just stay sober. And I would have, something would change with each step that would motivate me to keep going. And by the time I was finished, I had like 5 months of sobriety. And I had my first sponsee by the time I had 6 months. I am a tweaker at heart. We go fast. Because I'm like, why else are you coming here? You know what I mean? Like, you want to hang out? I had friends before I got here. If you've come to AA and you have friends, you're in the right place. Do you know what I mean? If you came to AA and you're not, what's the one I hear all the time? Like, I was different. I am different. I like being different. I celebrate being different. That's not why I'm drinking and doing drugs. I have an allergy of the body, and when I take one, it means nothing. And I'm not going to notice until I'm at 10. So that's why I'm here. And my very first sponsee is someone who I watched for years, Gary. And he will tell you, he has about 3 years now. And I just celebrated 16 years on the 16th. This is so funny. Like, when did that happen? You know, I remember wanting like a year. I remember wanting a 30-day chip. Like, I really wanted that 30-day chip. And when I got it, I was dumbfounded. I don't know, I couldn't get 3 days. And so, like, going to meetings and reading the big book, I got a chip, cash, and prizes. So this sponsee, Gary, will say today that what changed for him were the steps. And I have a sponsee that just came up from LA. I moved from Los Angeles to Oakland. I live on Lake Merritt in Oakland, and I'm so happy. It's ridiculous. And my sponsees there come up, and we do extended 10 steps and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But this one guy who has been in the rooms for 7 years, and he's danced and danced and danced, and he now has like the most time that he's had, and it's like 7 months, and it's because of the steps. Like, that's the only thing that's different. He has the same address, same boyfriend, same profession. So if you've yet to do them, or if you think you're a little stagnant, I say working with somebody else, because it will revolutionize your life. Thank you.
And the third speaker is Tom.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. My name is Tom. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks, Shaw. Richard, thank you. Jojo, thanks for inviting me to share. Welcome to San Francisco for those who are visiting. Thanks for coming to support our conference. For those, it's your first time at Living Sober, I want to welcome you. There's a rich, rich history with this conference. I've had a really amazing year. This last April, I celebrated 25 years of sobriety in this program. And yeah, I was 22 years old when I got to AA, and I say this often, and I absolutely believe it. If somebody a week before I came to AA, in the last days of my drinking, said, "You're going to go to AA next week, and you're not going to drink for 25 years," I would have thought they were absolutely crazy, completely out of their mind. Because everything about who I was and how I was defined was based upon how I drank. And to me, alcohol was my medicine. It was the thing that, it was the only thing I found that had ever worked. And drugs are a really big part of my story, but I always returned to alcohol. It was the sort of the magic elixir that took care of everything, you know? And but I'll get into that in a second. So this last year has been really amazing for me, celebrating 25 years. I've had some really incredible experiences, and I as my friends and my sponsees know, I celebrate my sobriety. And I do it partly because I can't think of a better way to sort of acknowledge the gift, you know, because in the early days of my sobriety, I got sober in Los Angeles. They made a big deal about sobriety and celebrating recovery there, and recovery in general was sort of a big deal. I remember being a newcomer and going to my first conference, and it was, you know, at the Universal Sheraton near Universal Studios, and it was this hotel that, you know, seemed like there were tens of thousands of people there, and you know, the ballroom was packed for the main speakers, and everybody like rushed to get the tapes of the speakers, and the speakers were amazing, and they took you on this wild ride, and you know, it just, I really felt like I was a part of something that I sort of was astonished how I landed there, really. And Friday night was a big deal to get dressed up and go to a meeting, and Saturday night was an even bigger night to get dressed up and go to a meeting because you might get a date afterward, and so celebrating sobriety has always been a part of my recovery, and this year, I started my 25th anniversary. The night before my 25th anniversary, I had dinner with a friend of mine. I was in London, and I had dinner with a guy that was a year and a half sober when I walked into the rooms of AA. And on the day I turned 25, I was sitting at Heathrow Airport waiting for a flight to Berlin and was looking at all these posts on Facebook and making all these phone calls, the traditions that I've developed over the years to mark this significant event. That's not just on the day, but it continues, way beyond. So I'm thinking this is going to be the end of my celebrating, but I have a debt I cannot repay. It's just impossible for me to repay the debt. Don's in the room, who was 5 years sober when I got here, and there's so many others in the room that have been a part of my life and part of this experience over the years. And I say that not because I remember being new and hearing people saying that, I thought, it's a clique. They're all cliquey here, because I didn't have any ability to connect to people before I got here. I had no idea what it was like to be a participant in a relationship that was a lasting relationship, And I learned how to do that here because of the examples of the people before me, but I learned the mechanics of how to do that in the steps, And I heard when I was new is that, the steps in the big book are blueprint for living, And I like that analogy. It's like if you're going to build a house, you got to have a place to start. I want to go out and buy the light fixtures and the dining room table, I don't want to waste my time on the foundation, That's like the cement and the dust and all that other stuff, But you got to have a foundation, before you can build the house, So anyway, so I'm an alcoholic. I know that without a doubt. When I was new, I did not know I was an alcoholic. In fact, it was not my problem. I knew there was all sorts of other problems, most of which was that you didn't understand me. And I knew you were a nice guy. I did. And if you understood me, you would think it's perfectly acceptable for me to steal from you. Because you're a nice guy. Because I hated myself when I got here. I had this great sense of self-loathing, and there was nothing about who I was that I liked. My first experience with alcohol was at 11. My family is the sort of Irish Catholic stock. You shake my family tree and empty bourbon bottles fall out all over my family, except my parents. They don't drink because, there's this sort of generational thing that happens. The children of alcoholics become sort of the tightly wound, pinched, kind that breed, the alcoholics that want to run amok, and that's certainly my family. And so my first experience with alcohol was I was introduced to it because my next door neighbor, Jessica, her family went to Europe for 6 weeks, and I don't think they were, 10 minutes away from the house, and we raided the liquor cabinet. And that night, I not only was my first drunk, or that afternoon really, was my first drunk, but it was when I learned to smoke cigarettes too. And I felt cool, And I remember we opened the cabinet and there were these big 16-ounce blue glasses, and everything in the liquor cabinet ended up in those drinks. Gin, rum, vermouth, creme de menthe, creme de coco. I mean, it all ended. I had 3 of them. It was so tasty, I had 3 of them. And, from that first experience of drinking, it felt like I had exhaled for the first time in about 4 years. It felt like my skin had expanded 2 sizes, And on this subconscious level, I made the decision that if that's what I have to do in order to feel this way, I would. And I can assure you, in the ensuing 11 years until the time I came to AA, that's what I was running after every time I picked up a drink, is to recapture that sense of peace and ease that came with that first drink. And I made that commitment without any understanding or connection to the consequences. And I was literally oblivious of the consequences. And, so again, I'm not one of these people that came to AA thinking, that alcohol is bad because I love everything about it, I don't understand social drinking. You know, from the very beginning, you know, I drank to get drunk, you know. There was a time toward the end I started to sort of put some, you know, sort of wrappings or exterior around it so that I could get away with sort of dressing it up. I remember one time, it was after I had drank myself out of college. And, you know, by the last 5 years of my drinking, I was a daily drinker. And I was living in Southern California. I moved to Southern California because I had designs of pursuing a professional singing career that for many, many years actually looked like it was going to go somewhere until alcohol sort of took that away. And I remember that period of time, you know, thinking this is this aspiration that really meant so much, and it didn't really matter as long as I had that next drink. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. It did not matter as long as I had that next drink. And so this was sort of after that period, and I had some friends that I think I worked with them, and they were going to go on this, outside of Santa Barbara in the Santa Ynez Valley, there's these wineries, and so we were going to go wine tasting, and there were sort of like 4 of them right next to one another, and you know, I was sitting in the hospitality room drinking, and they're talking about, you know, all this stuff, and I thought I'd buy 3 bottles with every one of these wineries, and so I don't know how I got these, because we were on bicycles, but I somehow managed to get 2 cases of wine on this bicycle back to the car. And this was going to be my foray into sort of like being a wine connoisseur. And you know where this is going, right? I spent the next 3 days drinking all 2 cases of the wine. You know, they didn't last much longer. You know, and that's the way it always worked. You know, and I couldn't figure. I started out with these great intentions. You know. I wasn't out of the closet then, and so, you know, part of it was trying to keep up this idea. But then shortly after that, I figured out, you know, maybe if I came out, that would change everything. And actually, I think that most of my prior 10 years of drinking history really has a lot to do with being gay. And I'm grateful that today that new people in Alcoholics Anonymous can have a joyful experience about being gay and about being sober and about having this. You know, this sort of second chance at life that I've been given here. And so the last year of my drinking was a little crazy, needless to say, because I told you I thought I was a high bottom drunk when I got here, but the fact is I had 3 warrants out for my arrest. I hadn't paid taxes in 3 years. I was $40,000 in debt, and I was unemployed and unemployable. And how I got there from being somebody that had aspirations for greatness caught me completely off guard. And so I came out of the closet because I thought that was my problem. And being gay was my problem. And I didn't want it, and I hated it, and I didn't know how to do it. But I figured out that if I show up to a bar, clearly that's, you know, where to start. And this was 1985, and Rock Hudson had just died of AIDS. And, you know, there was sort of this interesting sort of change, I think, that happened. Certainly AIDS had been, you know, in full flight, not to the extent it was in San Francisco, clearly, but I'll get to that in a second. And so I, you know, I went to this bar in West Hollywood and sort of staked it out. And, you know, I was the kind of person who had to get drunk to leave my house to get to the bar to be a wallflower, but I was 21 years old, and, you know, you could really still get pretty far ahead, and I started on my path of dating bartenders. I loved dating bartenders. And I remember it was Halloween at the Revolver, and the place was packed. It was this video bar, and they had this the spinning door, and and they had this lighting. The place was dark except the videos on the corner, and then there was this little blue light that was sort of right at the well as you walk in the door. And I remember walking into the door, into the Revolver, and this hot, hunky boyfriend bartender of mine saw me walk in, and the place was packed and crowded, and the queue to the well was, you know, it was a completely packed bar, and I literally walked in and I saw him do this and set my drink in the well of the bar, and the lighting sort of like, you know, highlighting it. I thought I had won the Academy Award. I mean, really, I thought, this is perfect. I've arrived. This is what I've always wanted, you know? And I knew I was going to go home with that guy, and I knew I was going to have sex with that guy. I knew everybody else in the bar wanted to go home with that guy and have sex with him, but I was the one. And I was the one getting the drink poured for free, and I thought, this is it. This is what I've aspired to become. Because I deserve it. It's what I thought. It's really what I thought. I had this great sense of entitlement. My first sponsor said it when I was new. He said, Tom, you're a malcontent with a sense of entitlement. It took me the first 10 years of my sobriety to really understood what that meant. So this bartender that I was dating had this little side business, and he was a crystal methamphetamine dealer. And that night, I was introduced to crystal meth. And, and people say, they had meth in '85? I'm like, I know. Meth without grinder, can you imagine? But yes, it was there. And so I had this, my last year of my drinking was sort of this entanglement with alcohol and meth. And interestingly enough, cocaine is not a part of my story, but meth enabled me to drink more and be awake a lot longer to drink more. It was crazy. Oh my God. So this went back and forth with this bartender, and then in May of that year of '86, I went to Palm Springs as a gay man who discovered bathhouses, and that's where it all really started. Because I didn't really want to hear about your fondest memories of 8th grade, and I really didn't want to find out where gay people go to vacation and what they wear and what they have to dress like and all that stuff enabled me to just cut right to the chase. And literally the last 9 months of my drinking, I was living in a bathhouse, and it wasn't anything that I thought would happen. It wasn't the life that I thought, and I was so completely detached from it all and removed from it that it made absolutely no sense.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom?
I mean, I was literally like out of my body and out of my mind too. So this bartender that I was dating, he said to me one day, he said, well, I know this guy who's this really funny old queen that used to do work as an actor in Hollywood in the 40s and 50s, and we're going to go to his birthday party. Now, this is an instance where people-pleasing really helped me, because Encino in June is like 145 degrees. I literally had not seen the light of day in 2 years. I really wanted this guy to like me, and if he said this is where we were going, I would go. And frankly, I was afraid of older gay men. So to be at an old queen's birthday party was the last thing on my list. And I went to this man's birthday party, and it was the oddest experience. It was this guy, it was his 60th birthday party, and there was all these people around. It was the strangest assortment. There was a guy that, was a Catholic priest, and there was these, little old Jewish ladies that lived in this complex that had just gotten back from the Dodger game. And there was young families and their kids, and these hunky gay guys. And there was a guy that, wrote his doctoral dissertation on tea rooms, and I'm not talking about the kind that serve tea. And, it was the strangest assortment, but it was really clear that every one of these people made a sacrifice to be there on that hot June day. And everybody that went up to that man, they just completely burst into this expression of love that I had never witnessed before to that moment. And as I'm sitting here watching all of this happen, I was introduced to this guy and found out that we were both from the Pacific Northwest. And he turns to somebody and said the strangest thing after he was offered a glass of wine. He said, oh, I don't drink. I'm an alcoholic. I haven't had a drink in 15 years. I thought, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How can you be an alcoholic and not have a drink in 15 years? But I was really curious. And so he was talking about his experiences in Hollywood. And as I mentioned, Rock Hudson had died of AIDS, and there was this need to sort of like, I don't know, not a need, but there was this market for Hollywood kiss and tells that were happening. And so he had written this book about his experiences in Hollywood, and it was in manuscript form. And, he was very protective of this. Anyway, I had met him after that party, and he had asked me if I wanted to read this manuscript. And it wasn't a story of Hollywood at all. It was a story of his drinking. And that's where, for me, the seeds of AA were planted. And I'm always astonished when people find us through court cards or back in the day when this conference was at the Bill Graham Auditorium, there's a couple of people I know that were sleeping in the bushes at Civic Center and saw the sign that said Western Roundup Living Sober, and that's how they got sober. And you know, that's not my experience, because I don't know how to connect to people on a deep and intimate level. I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to let people in to completely tell them the truth, you know. I could tell you a little bit of truth about me, and you a little bit of truth about me, and you a little bit of truth about me, but nobody had the whole picture. And but this man, there was something about him, and his example of sobriety was astonishing. And so a couple of months later, I was getting kicked out of my apartment for non-payment of rent. So I called him up and I said, you know, I was wondering, I know you have a spare bedroom in your condo. Do you think I can stay at your place for a couple of weeks until I find a place to live? And I put all my stuff in storage, and what was 2 weeks ended up being the next 6 months, which was the last 6 months of my drinking in the first year of my sobriety. And then eventually that man became my sponsor. And this was a guy that was in and out of AA for 5 years and was a Skid Row drunk by the time he got here at 15 years of sobriety when I met him. And that was the part of this story that I read that was so astonishing, is that he painted this picture of alcoholism that I had never heard or seen before. One picture in particular that was depicted in this manuscript is that, you know, he walked into Hollywood and 10 days later was a contract player at Warner Brothers, but by 1963, after he walked away from his career, he was at the State Mental Institution in Camarillo being treated for homosexuality and alcoholism. That included massive doses of Thorazine and electroshock therapy. And as he's sitting in this rec room or whatever, mounted to the corner of the wall was a television set playing the first film that he'd ever been in, you know, and he saw in that moment his life going full circle. Now, I don't have a story like that, but I certainly in that moment saw how easily I will cast aside all my hopes and dreams and anything that matters in favor of alcohol. And I never connected the dots until that moment, you know. And I don't know if what defines you as alcoholic is whether you're drunk 5 nights a week or you're drunk, you know, 24/7. But I do know what defines me as alcoholic is that when I take a drink, nothing else matters. This is why I've been here for the last 25 years, you know, because I know I'm an alcoholic. I did not know that until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And by coming here and finding this man who was a Skid Row drunk that told a story of alcoholism differently than anything that I had heard, I was able to work the steps in a manner because my life depended upon it. If you are new, I want to welcome you to AA. I hope you're hopeless, and I hope you're desperate. Because I would have never done any of this stuff unless I had reached that point, you know. And I'm grateful that this sponsor gave me reassurances that so long as I don't drink and I don't use, then, you know, my life will continue to get better, and that has definitely been the case. When I first came to this conference in 1991, it was a really different experience. There were about 5,000 attendees. It was at the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium. And one of the things that astonished me more than anything else is against the back wall of the auditorium was a wall twice the size of this one here, covered with butcher paper, where people had inscribed notes to their friends and their sponsors and their lovers who had died from AIDS. And AIDS had been going on for 10 years at that point. And I'd never seen such an expression of a community coming together to carry each other and help each other. And I was so angry being 24 years old and being new in AA and being around sickness and death. I was so angry with God. And I'm supposed to develop a relationship with this God that's supposed to keep me sober, you know. And I will tell you, I understand why I had to take that path. Because what I saw from these men was a demonstration of courage, of getting up at every meeting, week after week after week, saying, we don't drink or use no matter what. And every one of these men had 1,000 times more reasons to pick up a drink than I could have. And they would, week after week, say, we don't drink or use no matter what. I am moved, I am blessed, and I am honored to sit before you, and I thank you for my sobriety.
Thank you. I want to thank Richard, Shaw, and Tom for speaking tonight. Thank you so much. And don't forget to buy your vote out there in the hallway. And let's close the meeting with the spring prayer, please. Remember, we do not do this alone. God,
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back, it works.
Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.